You are walking through Disney when the storm hits like a switch. One moment, the air is warm and still, and the next moment, the rain is pounding so hard it blurs the view. You look down and the ground is covered in water, and it feels like the park is losing control. Here is the surprise. In many of those viral moments, you are not watching the whole system fail. You are watching one engineering bottleneck on the surface get hit faster than it can pass water into the hidden network below. Most people imagine drainage as one drain. In reality, it works like a chain. The surface pushes water to certain spots. Those spots feed intake points feed pipes feed storage, and storage releases water through controlled routes. When the chain is stressed, the first mess usually shows up at the very first handoff, because that is where water has to enter the system. So, if you see ankle-deep water, the right question is not, does Disney have drains? Of course it does. The question is, what is the first place the chain can slow down when a burst storm dumps water all at once? Start with something you can test with your own eyes. The ground is never truly flat. Walk across a big plaza and it feels level, but if it were truly level, rain would sit everywhere and never pick a direction. Engineers avoid that by shaping the pavement with tiny slopes. You do not feel them under your shoes, but water follows them like arrows. Those arrows aim runoff toward low points. A low point is simply the place designed to be slightly lower than the area around it, so water gathers there instead of spreading across the whole park. This is why the same few places appear in storm videos over and over. They are often the spots where several walkways meet, where the slopes from different directions point toward the same corner, or where a wide open space needs a place for water to collect before it drops away. Now we get to the bottleneck that creates the Disney is flooding look. At the low point, the water has to leave the surface. It leaves through inlets. These are the openings that let water drop from the pavement into the underground pipes. In a normal city street, those openings are obvious. In a themed park, they are often tucked into curbs, edges, and details, so you do not feel like you are walking through a storm sewer. That is good for immersion, but it also means guests do not notice how much work those small openings are doing. Here is the key. Inlets can only capture water so fast. This has nothing to do with how expensive the park is. It is a simple limit. Water has to reach the opening, fit through the opening, and drop into the pipe. During a hard burst, the low point is being fed by water from a huge surrounding area at the same time. So the inlet becomes the choke point. Not the big canals, not the ponds, not the long pipe routes. The mouth at the surface. A quick picture makes this easy. Think about pouring water into a sink. If you pour slowly, it disappears instantly. If you dump a bucket in 2 seconds, the water rises first, then drops once the pour slows. The drain did not break. The timing was the problem. Too much, too fast, right at the opening. That is what many Disney flood clips are showing. A short moment where surface inflow beats inlet capture, followed by a quick fall once the rainfall rate eases. Now notice what this explains. It explains why flooding often starts fast. It explains why it can look worst in one small spot. And it explains why it can clear quickly after the hardest rain passes. Once water makes it through the inlet, the rest of the chain takes over. Under the pavement, small pipes collect flow from many inlets. Those small pipes connect to larger pipes. That branching pattern is how a storm network moves a lot of water away from busy areas. Then the water reaches storage. Storage is what keeps a huge property from turning into one giant rushing river after a storm. Storage is the quiet holding space that takes the spike and spreads it out over time. After that, water leaves through controlled channels and canals that move it away from the areas people are walking. This is why the camera can be misleading. The camera shows the surface chaos at the exact place where the chain is narrowest. It does not show the bigger parts that are often still working. Now, even when the water is shallow, videos can make it look deeper than it is. Big open pavement exaggerates depth. A thin sheet spread across a wide plaza reads like a lake because your brain cannot easily judge the edges. Moving water adds drama too. When it flows, it reflects lights and bright sky, and phones turn that shimmer into something that looks faster and heavier. Crowds add one more trick. A stroller wheel and a child's legs make the same water look higher because your brain uses them as a ruler. Small rulers make the water feel bigger. But there is a more important engineering reason certain clips look extreme. It is not just rain. It is where the rain is being collected from. Imagine two places in the same park. One place is a narrow path with grass nearby. Some water can soak in. The surface area feeding the low point is smaller. Another place is a wide plaza surrounded by roofs and pavement. Roofs shed water fast. Pavement turns water into runoff instantly. That low point gets fed from a much larger, hard surface, so it receives a stronger surge. Same storm, different feeding area, totally different result. Now, what about the clips where water really does get high, like calves or even knees? Those moments usually happen when three things stack at once. First, the storm hits in an intense short burst, not a steady drizzle. The system is being asked to capture a peak. Second, the low point is shaped like a shallow bowl, so the water stacks instead of sliding away evenly. Third, the inlet is not capturing at full speed. Sometimes this is just the peak being too strong. Sometimes debris collects at the opening and cuts the capture rate. You do not need a conspiracy for this. Leaves move, napkins move, small trash moves, even a partially covered opening can change the scene fast. Now here is an honest reality check. Seeing surface ponding does not automatically mean the whole drainage network is broken. If the deeper system was truly overwhelmed, you would usually see broader impacts and longer-lasting water. You would see many areas staying wet long after the hard part passes. You would see water behaving like it has nowhere to go. Most viral clips do not show that. They show a fast rise during the peak, then a fall once the peak eases. This is where a design trade-off matters. In storm planning, you choose priorities. You want guests comfortable, but you also have to protect critical spaces. Wet pavement is annoying. Water getting into sensitive utility areas is a higher risk. So, during rare extreme minutes, systems are often designed to tolerate short surface ponding in predictable places while keeping critical areas protected. That does not mean anyone wants you wading through it. It means the system is built to control the worst outcomes first. Now, if you want to see the engineering in real time, here is a simple thing you can do in a storm without any tools. Look for the tiny streams. They always form first. They show the exact direction of slope. Follow those streams with your eyes, and they will lead you to the low point. Then, look at the edges. Curbs and borders often guide flow like rails. A curb can turn a shallow sheet into a visible ribbon. That ribbon looks dramatic because it is concentrated, but it is often doing something helpful by moving water where it needs to go. Then, watch what happens when the storm changes tempo. The rain does not have to stop. It only has to slow. When the inflow drops even a little, the inlet starts catching up. The water level at the low point starts to fall. That is the bottleneck easing. Now, a common pushback is, why not just add more drains everywhere? More inlets can help, but it is not as simple as it sounds. Every inlet needs pipe connections. Pipe space is crowded underground. There are utilities, foundations, and service lines. Changing a network like that can mean serious construction. There is also the theme problem. Engineers want large, obvious capture points. Designers want a world that feels like a story, not a street. So the solution is usually targeted improvements, not turning every walkway into a city curb line full of grates. And even with improvements, physics still exists. A rare extreme burst can still exceed surface capture for short windows in the most concentrated low points. So the goal becomes this: control where the water goes, control how long it stays, and protect what matters most. Now zoom out and the title makes complete sense. Why does Disney World keep flooding? Because in the hardest minutes of a storm, the surface handoff is the narrowest part of the chain. The pavement is shaped to funnel water towards certain low points. Those low points feed hidden inlets. And when the storm dumps more water than those inlets can capture in that short window, the water has to stack on the surface first. Then, once the burst eases, the inlets catch up, the pipes carry flow away, storage absorbs the spike, and the surface drops. So the next time you see a viral clip, watch for 3 clues. Look for the streams that show the slope. Look for the low point where the water is collecting. And look for the moment the rain slows, because that is when you can often see the bottleneck release and the water levels start to fall. One last question to carry with you, because it changes how you watch those videos. If the biggest bottleneck is the surface intake points, and the park also has to protect the theme, how do engineers decide where to place those hidden inlets so they work in the worst storms without making the land feel like a normal city street?